Yo, how's it going, guys? Today we're going to be doing a top lane Kled matchup tier list because I've had a lot of people ask me to do an updated version of this because I did do one of these last year for both top and mid. So yeah, we're going to do it for season 14. The patch is currently 14.5 as I'm recording this. There is a chance I might do another updated one in a couple of patches from now if any of the matchups change due to like items and stuff, because I do know there are some big crit item changes coming in next patch, so we'll see how that affects it. But as of right now, this is like my understanding and like feeling on a lot of these matchups. So yeah, let's get right to it. So first off, we're gonna start off with the obviously the hardest ones, which is Fiora, Jax, Poppy, Vayne, Quinn, and honestly any other like range champ, like say like a Lucian for example too. I didn't actually put him in this tier list because I didn't want to like throw too many champions in here. But honestly, any range champ that has self peel is just really annoying because they can just bully you off the wave early, and they just scale really well. And since they have self peel as well, it's very hard to stick onto them. Then obviously Fiora, Jax, Fiora has her parry, Jax has his E, and then for Poppy, Poppy just has really high base stats and has a lot of percent max self damage in her kit. So it's very hard to get onto her as well because of her W. And she kind of just stat checks you. And right now there's this like Eclipse build that she's going as well, kind of similar to the Kled build, except she goes like a shield oriented build where she kind of just stat checks you throughout the game. So it's a very hard matchup. Now moving on to the harder matchups. I threw a decent amount in there. I put some like champions that aren't traditional top laners like Heimer and Azir, TF, all those ones Action, just because I have seen them a couple times this season, so I wanted to just like include them in here. But for the most part, these matchups, a lot of them early on, it's actually kind of hard to ever kill them, and they also just scale really well into you. Like say for example, Rengar. Rengar is a champion where he kind of just stat checks you throughout most of the levels. Like levels 3 to 5, there is a chance you can maybe kill him, but it's very tricky because you have to bait out his Fury beforehand. Because if he has his Fury bar built up and he's playing around the bushes as well, like you have to try to push him under his turret. Because early on you kind of have to let him push into you. But if you can get him away from the bushes and bait out his Fury, then you can potentially look for trades onto him. But most of these matchups, Darius, Riven, Kennen, like all these champions kind of just slowly just harass you or just stat check you and straight up 1v1s. And obviously like execute champions like Darius and Garen will obviously kind of cuck you at level 6, right? Because you won't be able to remount that easily. I put Action in hard compared to hardest because although Action does have some self-peel, as I was talking about earlier with like Vayne and Quinn, it is easier to stick onto him because it's not like an actual peel ability that knocks you away like a Condemn or Quinny. He just has his like swing E, but if you land your EQ, you can usually follow him with it. And although like his first like couple levels is very hard to deal with, like there is potential that he could fuck up and you could kill him off that. So there's stuff like that. And then obviously everyone knows about Udyr and TF. They're both really disgusting stat check champions. They did nerf TF last patch, I think. So it's a little bit less oppressive, but it still is very strong. And yeah, Udyr just kind of stat checks you throughout the game because of Frozen Heart being super cheap, and also just in general at champions is very strong. Heimer, Kennen, both just very good. Even as you're like all three of these are just really good poke champs. Obviously, Urgot's also in there with the executes. Aurelia just builds Bork and just murders you. Jace, I feel like it depends on the elo actually for this. I'm doing this more for like higher MMR, like around like Masters Plus. But Jace is definitely a champion where if he doesn't know how to space properly, you can just bully the player. But if you play against a good Jace, it's very hard to ever actually punish him. He also does some self-peel with his E, right, when he's in hammer form. And he just does very high burst damage. And then Trinimir's is very cringe. GP is another one where it's like, if the GP is good, like he'll just bully you. But if he doesn't know what he's doing, then you can't just bully him. But I'm basing this once again off of like when I'm playing in like Master GM Chal Elo. So that's why I put him in hard. But yeah, for the most part, it's these, as I mentioned, these matchups are just kind of stat checky, and it's very hard to like actually punish them without them making like major mistakes. So that's why I put them all into hard. Now into 50-50. One champion I was like debating on putting into hard was Camille. because it is still a pretty difficult matchup. But ever since they moved Divine Thunder, it has made the matchup feel a little bit more playable. Because in lane, they did nerf her laning phase at the end of last season, where her passive shield's a lot longer CD now. So if you just play around her passive shield early on, it's not too bad. It's just obviously if you do fall behind against Camille, she'll just murder you. It's the same with like a Gione, where like these champions, if they get ahead of you, like you won't be able to play the game. But if you can get ahead of them, you can kind of just bully them in lane and then just snowball off that. I used to have Alawi in favored last season, but ever since they buffed her tentacle slam range, she's became a very obnoxious matchup. Like there's been times where like I'll dodge 90% of her E's in lane, but it feels like I'm still like trading evenly, even though I'm not even getting hit by a lot of the tentacle slams, because there's just one random slam that hits me, and it's like it shouldn't. It feels like it shouldn't, and it just feels very stat checky at the moment. I do think you can win this matchup. It's just very tricky. I just put a lot of the tank matchups in here as well, like Cassante, Ornn, Ench. I usually put Sion in favored, but honestly, Sion's in a pretty good spot right now with the items, so I just kept them in 50-50. But for the most part, like all these like tankier champions, like you can sometimes kill them in lane, but for the most part, you're just playing for CS leads and getting plates on them. You can't really like just 100-0 them unless like they really fuck up. So that's why I put all those tank matchups into the 50-50 tier. In the past, I actually would have had Cassante in hard because he was broken for a very long time, but I do feel like he's a little bit more balanced now. He still is very good, but I feel like he's more playable into at the moment, so that's why I kept him in there. And then there's this champs, like, I haven't actually played against Wukong with his buffs on this patch, so I'm not too sure how hard the matchup actually is, so I kept him at 50-50 because in the past that's how the matchup is. But we'll see, maybe my mind will change on this matchup, but for the most part, a lot of these bruisers like Wukong, Set, Warwick, Pantheon, Aatrox, all these matchups, it just comes down to spacing. If you can space well and just play it patiently and just slowly chunk them out, you will eventually start to just chunk them out. And then once you find your window to look for the all-in at around like 50-60% HP in a lot of these matchups, then you can snowball onto them. It's the same with like an Olaf too. Like Olaf level 1 does beat you, but levels like 2 to 5, if you've played it like smart and patiently and you've slowly chunked him, like you'll just be able to beat him up. So most of these matchups, it's pretty much just coming down to, as I put here, it's like it's a skill matchup 50-50, but as long as you're playing it correctly and patiently and not like over forcing stuff for no reason and building advantages off that, all these matchups aren't too bad. Now moving on to favored, I put Nefuri in here. I haven't actually really seen Nefuri top, but I do know some people do play it, so I put it in favored. I haven't really played against it that much, but in the past, when I did play against it, it felt not too bad. It feels like Nefuri's early game is very like low in terms of damage, so you can kind of just stat check her early on. Obviously Akali, Nasus, both champions where you can kind of bully them early. If you don't actually like snowball on them, like it could become an issue later on into the game, but obviously for Akali, your E and Q both reveal her in her shroud, so it's not too bad, and she's pretty squishy. Nasus obviously has a pretty bad early game, so if you can just punish him early and try to deny him as many stacks as possible, it's not too bad. I actually put Cho'Gath in favored, which honestly, I'm actually just going to put it back up here. I don't know why I actually put him in favored. As I mentioned, like all the tank matchups, it's literally just 50-50, so I actually moved Cho'Gath back to Singed. Pretty much, as long as you're just farming well and playing patiently and forcing the Singe to like make stupid plays, like trying to fight you, like you can just kill him. But you never want to like overforce him to a Singed and try to like 100-0 him, right? Like as long as you're playing patiently and try to deny him from being able to proxy. If he stays in lane, like if he ever tries to actually fight you, you should be able to just stat check him, so it's not too bad. Swain, Vlad, Yall are all champions that are pretty weak early, right? As well, so for the most part, this tier is just like all these like champions that have really bad like early laning phases that can't burst you. So as long as you're just like looking for windows to like engage onto them, it's pretty free. I actually put Rammus in, like this is the only tank I'll actually put into this tier. It was Rammus, because Rammus top. I mean, as long as you're not dumb and fighting into his W, like you'll just kill him every single time. Like eventually. And just build a CS lead off that. It's just an annoying matchup. He's kind of like Singed, where he's just trying to annoy you and scale, but as long as you just don't fall into like fighting and trading constantly, it's not bad. Like it's usually fine. And then for free, I probably could have put more into this tier, but um, I just put Silas, Mundo, and Smolder. Mundo just doesn't have enough damage to actually kill you, and it's very easy to just burst him early on, like pre-6. Silas is pretty much the same as well, where if he ever tries to engage on you, you just kind of just stat check the fuck out of him as long as you land everything. Smolder, I haven't actually played against Smolder top too much, but out of the times I have played against Smolder, it obviously with Smolder being like super weak early, and he doesn't really have good peel for himself because his E is like kind of slow to activate at first. So as long as you land your initial E onto him, like you can just follow him into E2 and then land your Q, and yeah, you'll just beat his ass. So I feel like all three of these matchups, it's pretty free as long as like yeah, you're not like randomly like missing EQs and like overforcing stuff, and yeah, it's not too bad. But yeah, pretty much that's it for my tier list for today. I was gonna go more in depth, but I feel like the video would take way too long. So maybe in the future, if you guys really want me to, I could go in depth on like each matchup, and we could do that for the future. Like maybe do like specific like videos for each matchup, kind of like how I did in the past with that one Fiora VOD video. We can do something like that. But yeah, definitely let me know down below how you guys thought about this tier list of mine, and if you guys would change any of the matchups in specific tiers. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, everyone.